Okay, today we're going to start a really simple felted purse. I'm using Patton's Classic Wool. You can use any wool as long as it says it's suitable for felted projects. I have 4 skeins. This should be plenty. The next thing that you need for your project is size 11 circular needles. Also, I've purchased some kind of square rings. I'm going to use these for my handles. You don't have to have these. I'm going to show you how you could put your handles on your purse directly, or you could put them through these rings. And then the last thing is a button. So that's it. Let's get started. Okay, for this project, we're going to be knitting the entire project using 2 skeins of yarn and holding them together as though they were one. And we're going to start out by casting on 100 stitches. Okay, I've finished casting on. I'm going to just trim the tail. And the next thing we need to do is join our yarn together so we can knit in the round. The most important thing when you join the yarn is you need to make sure that your yarn is not twisted. And in this I can see that all the cast on is in a good circle and that it's not twisted. I am going to scoosh the yarn kind of close to both ends. And I'm going to put a marker at the beginning of the yarn. Here's my marker, just so that I know where I've begun. So at the end of our project, when our purse is really big, we'll know where to end. So you're going to start knitting just like you normally would. I'm pulling this a little bit tighter just in the beginning, just because sometimes when you knit in the round, you get a tiny bit of a gap. You can see, because we have cast on 2 stitches, that every stitch has 2 pieces of yarn. So you want to make sure that when you do knit that you pick up both pieces of yarn. We're at the end of our first round. Knit the last couple of stitches. Then we're going to take our marker and move it over from the left needle to the right needle. And then go ahead and begin the second round. Okay, for this purse I have knitted about 3.5 inches, and I want to add in another color for a real subtle color change. Actually, I have a couple more stitches to go for the end of this row. And then instead of changing both yarns, just because I want a subtle color change, I am just going to cut one of the yarns and then add in my new yarn, which will just give it a little tiny bit of a change. So we'll just add it in, and now I'm going to knit with these 2. If you want to put a stripe pattern in your purse, you can change your yarn as many times as you want. Just, then that's the hard part, is when you're designing these purses, is what you like. How many colors you want. All the yarns are so beautiful these days, but I'm going to do a really subtle color change. It'll just show up after I've felted it. So now I'm going to continue to knit, and I think I'm going to do about 8 inches or so of color, but when I felt it down, it'll end up being much shorter and smaller than that. Okay, I'm done with the main part of the bag. Right now it measures about 16 inches. And it also happens to be about 16 inches in width. When we felt this, it's going to lose about 30% both in length and width, possibly a little bit more in length. And it's not going to be this deep. We're going to be folding it up and making a bottom for it. So now I'm going to cast off. We're going to begin where the marker was and start to cast off all the way around. And then I'm going to weave in all my loose ends. Okay, our next step is to sew a seam across the bottom. I've turned my piece inside out. That's very important. You don't want your seam to show, so I've turned it inside out. I have my yarn on a yarn needle, and I'm just going to sew up across the bottom. And in this case, I'm just doing a simple back stitch. Now that I've finished sewing the bottom of the bag, I'm going to do side seams on the bottom. I'm going to take the bag like this, and we are going to sew these edges right across like this, and that'll make the bag a little bit more square or rectangle. So this is what we're going to sew right across. Now to do that and to make it easier, you want to grab your bag, and I'm going to just lay it out flat like this. We want the center seam to go right down the middle. If you want your bag deeper, then you'll sew farther in. If you want it more thinner, like a thinner wide bag, then you'll sew closer to the edge here. I want mine pretty deep, so I'm going to sew right across. And again, I'll just do the back stitch right across, and I'm going to go about, maybe about 4 inches in. Both the flaps are sewn now, and the next step, what we're going to do is just take these and fold them down, and then just tack the corner to the center seam. This will help give the bottom of the bag some stability also. All right, I've sewn both flaps down, and I've weaved in all of the extra yarn. Now we'll flip the bag around, and it's beginning to look a little bit more like a purse. I have finished knitting all the pieces for my bag. I first made 2 straps. I cast on 6 and knit across until they are 24 inches long, so I have 2 of those. The next thing I made was 4 of these tabs, the same thing, cast on 6, and I knitted until they're 6 inches. The reason I made these is I'm going to take these square rings that you can get from any craft store or fabric store. I'm going to put the little tab through and attach that to my purse, and then attach the strap from there. I think it'll give the bag a little bit more detail and the handle some swing. And the last piece that I made is going to be my closure. This will just go to one side of the bag and go through the button. For this piece I cast on 40, then I knit across, and then I cast off. So we're ready to felt the bag. I'm going to put all the pieces in the washing machine. I have a front loading washing machine. If you do use a front loading washing machine, you have to make sure that you can stop the cycle right in the middle and open the door. Some of the washing machines lock and you can't get in. For felting, you have to be able to check your piece. In my case, because it's a front loader, I will probably check it about every 10 to 15 minutes. It's much slower than a top loading washer. For the top loading washer, you'll want to open it up and check it probably every 5 minutes, maybe 10, but you don't want to do it too much. You don't want to felt it too much. You want to be able to check it as you go. When I put these pieces in the washing machine, I'm going to add some old jeans that won't fade, or I'm going to add a whole bunch of sheets, but don't add towels because that makes these pieces real nubby. So the reason we add other things into the washing machine is because we want to create friction, and that makes the felting process happen a lot faster. So I'm going to put everything in the washing machine with warm water, and then we'll go from there. All right. The bag came out of the washer. The next thing I'd like to do is shape it. It's the size that I want. So I'm going to go ahead and put a box down and put a plastic bag over that. You can use just a regular bags and stuff it inside to get it the shape that you would like. But I'm going to go ahead and put this over the box, and then leave it here to completely dry. So here's our finished bag. I went ahead and assembled it. The first thing that I did was I took little tucks in each side because I wanted it to be a little bit more square. It was more like a bucket or a tote before, but for this one I wanted to give it a little bit of shape. So I only sewed down about 1 inch, and that just gave it a little tiny tuck on both sides. Next, I took our 6-inch that shrank down pieces, our little tabs, and I put it through the ring and sewed those on. I did it on all 4 sides, and then I put our handle through the ring, And I added, these are just little buttons I added. They do not go all the way through. I sewed all the way through, and then I just added the button on at the end. Lastly, we added this piece to close the bag. I sewed on a nice big button, and this piece was too big if I left the whole thing open. I attached it on the back, just sewed it right on. You can sew it inside if you don't want it to show. And I sewed this shut. I just hand sewed it shut because the hole was too big and it was sliding off my button. So I just sewed that up, and that was it. This bag I did not line. I'm not planning on lining it, but I usually do line my bags. So, and I want to show you an example of one that I have lined. This bag has been worn quite a bit. But this one, I also got handles for this bag from a fabric store, and I like these pre-made handles also. They give it a really nice finished look. So this bag I have lined, and when I do lining, I add pockets for cell phones and various items. It's really nice, and this is easy to do, and we'll probably do that on the next video. So hope you like it.